Hey everyone. Today, we're actually going to be doing something a little bit different. Just recently, just last week, I had Yaroslav and Andrei from Fogbender to talk about their tool B2B SaaSkit. So this is the first one of these like interview style bits of content I'm really like making, and I'm sure there will be flaws, but hopefully it'll get better in the future. So let's go check out B2B SaaSkit and Fogbender, and let's chat with Andrei and Yaroslav. So, I am here today with Yaroslav and Andrei from Fogbender, and we're going to be talking about a tool they built called B2B SaaSkit. I don't know much about it. I haven't even done any research ahead of time, so I'm going to be experiencing it just as well as you. So yeah, introduce yourselves.
Who starts?
Yeah, let's figure it out.
You start.
Okay, I'll start. So Fogbender is a startup where we've been working for, I don't know, 3.5 years. We're founded the startup. It's a customer support product for companies that need to talk to teams as opposed to like individuals. We've struggled to find ways to just let people know that we exist. It's a pretty common problem in general. I would say that it was even worse for us because our very small team has been like just all engineers, like 5 engineers. So nobody really wants to do any marketing or even think about it. And so I think, I don't remember the exact, but let's just say that this is how it happened. I think I went for a run at the Port of Oakland, and I was like, we really got to find some way to tell people we exist. And all we can do is write code. Like we literally can't do anything else. And so I was like, what if we built a toolkit that consisted of a bunch of different services, and of course, like based on some open source technologies. But what if we built a toolkit that would make it really easy for someone thinking of starting a B2B or just trying like a B2B product, so that they would go through some instructions and essentially end up with a working product. It doesn't matter really what the product does, but it's something that has certain characteristics that are common or really like necessary for a B2B, which I read as like team to team type of relationship. And so that's literally, and so I think I came from the run and I talked to Yaroslav, and then like the next day it was already kind of like working to some extent. And that's the catalyst. I don't know how close it is through the truth. I don't actually think it matters, but that's sort of where what we wanted to do, and that's what we've been kind of doing. And it's amazing how long it takes to get something, even something relatively simple like this, just to some degree of like we can show it to people.
Something you're confident in sharing, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, like we thought it would take 2 weeks, and it took, I don't know, 2 months easily. More, maybe 2.5. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. So we've been looking, and we're getting some folks trying it out. I mean, I think that, like, did we do this to like tell people about our product? Yes, we did. But I think like we put a lot more forward. We've given a lot more to the community than like to make it look a little bit less commercial. Like we really are hoping to help people first, and then like if folks think that what we're building is potentially interesting, that's like a nice bonus.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I assume Fogbender is part of like the recommended tools for SaaSkit and such, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's actually kind of easy to promote Fogbender in this toolkit because it's really the only thing that's actually built specifically for B2B.
Rated my stream with 9
as a product. As a product, like the only other thing you have at your disposal is Slack Connect. So you either use Slack Connect.
You just blew my mind.
That's kind of team to team, or you use something designed for talking to consumers, or so far as I know, like we're the only ones working on kind of B2B.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's cool. Real quick, I got to pause. We got a raid from Clarkio. Clarkio, thank you, Mr. Sir. We have Andrei and Yaroslav from Fogbender kind of just walking us through what B2B SaaSkit is. So it's pretty cool. And Jay Phils, thank you for that sub.
It's _J
What is
So, yeah.
a raid?
Just
A raid is
for
basically when you
35
can transfer
months.
your audience into another channel, right? So you're
Ah.
ending stream, so you just want to, like, guide your audience to another channel that you're a fan of, right? It's a good way of just like more of a community in Twitch, and it's hard to do on YouTube. So yeah, like I think
It
that's
also
one major
means
thing
that
that they
a
lack.
bunch of people just joined.
Yeah, we just had 9 people join us. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's my first time on Twitch.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's pretty fun. It's a really like interactive experience compared to a lot of like YouTube type live streams where it's more just watching someone program it.
I worked in the same building as Justin TV for a couple of years.
Oh, really? Cool.
In 2007. So I feel like I'm really close, to the origin of the company because I saw them every day. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really
and then
cool.
It only took like not quite 20 years to create an account.
Right. Yeah, no big deal.
No big deal.
Yeah, and we worked with Andrei for like a long time, so we've been like in a few companies and a few products, and like technically speaking, our Fogbender website just like suffered SEO wise, and it was pretty slow because it was just like a built-in React, and we didn't kind of like spend time figuring that out at first. And for this day, there are like still a lot of articles on our like website where Google just like I don't remember like the exact term, but there's like, we know that this page exists, but we're not going to crawl it. So I don't remember like the term for that, but they're like, it's like we don't care about that. So like just launching this like B2B SaaSkit just like gave us like a few like good links and all that stuff. So it's like it was in a sense just like, hey, let's figure out what is the thing that like will help us and that other people could promote as well. So it's like if Fogbender is not the only thing that's there, right? So like we can go to like Supabase and ask, hey guys, can you like retweet this? So
okay, cool.
Which they really didn't. So far, the only folks who did anything to sort of promote it were Doppler on LinkedIn. They had reposted my post on LinkedIn, which I'm really grateful for. But like none of the other ones did so far.
Astro did, but they're not a service.
Astro is not a service, but Astro did as well. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's a shame because the Propel Auth people, they're a very small company. You could probably reach out to them. Right?
Oh yeah,
just to see.
Yeah, we were like literally in the same YC batch as them, so we know them pretty well.
Okay,
but I think they're slammed. With them, we struggled. I think we finally got through, but we were running into this debilitating problem with Propel, where basically their service was doing a 503. In some instances, we couldn't. There's basically no rhyme or reason like why it happens. Usually on mobile, but it's happening on desktop as well. And basically, if that happens, you can't sign up. So we had, I don't know how much traffic we got that was like, okay, like this is clearly not working. And it took us a long time to kind of explain it to Andrew from Propel. But I think now he saw the problem and he promised to take a look at it this weekend. So I hope that he finds it and finds the problem. There is clearly a bug. Okay. It would be awesome if they fixed it, because right now we're kind of in this holding pattern. We're waiting for Propel to fix this issue, which I'm sure we're not the only ones who are seeing it. The reason it's incredibly apparent to us is because we're calling it from the front end. And I think they said that most of their customers are calling that like token endpoint from the back end. And so it's just less visible, or maybe there's some like retries that they're doing, but it's been a little bit of a,
and the browser might just be sending some extra headers or something that the backend isn't prepared for.
You know what? Like on the same phone, I've had it error out, and then like I'd refresh it a few times and it works. I can't be headers.
Okay, yeah, because they would be consistent.
Weird. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
And the funny thing is that they said like, hey, our service like never returned 503, but like 503 is this thing that like gateways return. So it's like they're probably using some like Cloudflare or something, and it's having any issues.
That could make sense. Okay, interesting.
It might be an Eisen bug.
Yeah,
Right?
but
Yeah.
talking about like those kind of like weeks or months that we spent on like building this, the main kind of like selling point is that those are the months that like everyone has to spend, and we are we at least like think of ourselves as like team of like experienced engineers who can like move a bit faster with that. So that means if someone just starting with this, they're either like not doing half of this stuff because they just don't have time, right? Or
Mhm.
they're going to do it kind of like just like poorly. They will have some kind of like shortcuts or something like that. So we that's the things that's like, hey, we need like support, and it's like, oh, it's too hard to implement. Let's just like do that. Let's just add an email. But here, since you have a kit already, you can just like put uh, like a token, right? And everything works. So that's
Right.
kind of like that's the promise of like all of those kind of like starter kits, right? So to reuse this work to get starting with like some of those services quicker and all of that stuff.
Okay.
As I mentioned, we were hoping to, and we looked at a bunch of these toolkits, and one of the issues we saw was that the examples were incredibly basic. And so in other words, it was very clear that if you really wanted to use this, you were going to be maybe shaving some time off of like the harness, setup. But in general, you were going to be figuring out pretty much everything yourself. And so if you, there's a link somewhere there, probably to prompts with friends. It's that, yeah. So this is a product. You can think of it as a product, basically.
Okay.
It's fully open source, right? So it's like an open source B2B product. There's more of them now. I mean, Supabase itself is open source, but this is something, it's basically a web app with team-based authentication. So if you like, if you go to get started, if you can sign up and you can invite your, let's say your friends or your colleagues into your organization. It's all, the design isn't particularly incredible, but that's actually, I think, a benefit. Like, we're not necessarily saying this is what it needs to look like. That's totally up to you, right? But so then, okay, so you have this app where you can create prompts, GPT prompts, that you can essentially publish or share with your team. So possibly silly, possibly useful, but relatively complex, authentication, secrets management, database, a backend, customer support, and product analytics are all there. And this instance of it that you're looking at, that's basically us hosting it. But by going through this kind of like the toolkit instructions, the exercise is to stand up your own version of this relatively complex app, and you can like run it on Vercel under your own domain. You can buy a domain, or you can use one that you already have, and like the same thing, which is again like a pretty complex thing, you could be running. And then our target audience, or at least what I think our target audience is, these are like folks who say we're like laid off from, I don't know, Google or Meta or whatever, like a big job. And these are maybe like some pretty senior people who have some technical insight into a problem that no one is solving right now, because like nobody has the insight. And all what they need to do is just implement the logic to like fix this problem. And so we're hoping that maybe they find this kit and then, recognize that this is something that's already working. All they need is a little bit of design, and then actually implement their own business logic, and then they can launch it and test their hypothesis, not in 2 months, but like maybe in a week, right? Like something significant.
Right. They can focus on actually building the product, not becoming an expert of hosting or of auth and all that stuff. They want to focus on the actual like product thing. I get that.
Exactly.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, just to point out, whatever works, this is just like a demo app. So yeah, does ChatGPT have some of this functionality? Sure. But, could you spin up your own idea for whatever this is? The idea of this business is not what this is about. This is about a demo of what you can spin up quickly with B2B SaaSkit.
I'm actually pretty happy with this product, because it can do some stuff that ChatGPT can't.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah. And I assume like they might even take inspiration eventually from tools that do stuff like this, the collaborative part of it, right?
Yeah, just based on like how many people use this thing. It could be like a bit too advanced, but you can think of it as kind of like a postman for your kind of like GPT requests, because it allows you to, like in Postman, you can do like headers and like methods and all that stuff that is like a bit more advanced. And here you can do, you can run like whole dialogues, or you can like go back in history and like rerun the old prompt without like destroying all the like newer ones, or just
Okay.
go and like edit the response that bot gave you. I gave this example of like translate 1+1 in Spanish, and it gives you an answer. And if you edit this answer in like in the format that you need, maybe you want to like return it as JSON or something like that, it kind of like smart enough to figure out the format from the response, from like GPT response, right? So that it knows that later on, if you ask it a similar question, it will use that format instead of you like manually specifying all the like ways that how it works. So it's
You
actually kind
just
of like
blew my mind.
um, pretty advanced thing. And like in the end, you get like this button like copy code in your like thing. So you can go and like, now that you build all of the logic the way that you wanted, you can use it in your application with all the like examples or all the system messages they call it in ChatGPT, and all that stuff that is like not available in ChatGPT, that is available through GPT APIs.
Cool.
So we can play with that for like a second. So the free
Sure.
users only have like three three requests.
Sure. Yeah. You're not made of money. But yeah. Okay.
And billing, I forgot about billing. So, if you think
You
about
just blew my
the
mind.
way I think about this like sample product, it's a way to deep tune prompts. And when I say deep tune, I mean every message is something that you can
You can select a
find-
template there,
Yeah.
on like on the right drop down, where it's like select a
Top right.
template.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can use this Skynet one. I think that's the
Okay.
I didn't even know we had this. This is mine.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
a bit.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you can basically I mean, it's not great UI, but each message has a role. So you could be system, which is like the general. By the way, this is something you can't do in the UI, right? You have to use API for this, and so you can explain what the thing is, how it needs to behave, and then you can either you can have a message of type assistant or of type user, and or like assistant meaning this is what the AI returns, and user is that what we're asking from the AI. So you have three roles. And the basic idea is that you can really get prompts to be pretty accurate if you show AI enough examples. And this is how you can actually create those examples. So you can basically, build up your prompt with each message, right? Each message having a role and having some very specific text. And then you can actually regenerate a particular message given everything above, right? So not everything below, but just like everything up to this particular point. You can also change the order of the messages. So that's something that's tricky to do, obviously, if you're I don't know, like just typing free text essentially. So yeah, it's kind of a, it's kind of like, I mean, it's really on steroids, but possibly somebody might find it useful if you're building some really, really specific prompts for your job. Well, your job might be like data mining or data extraction, or you need to create a very specific JSON document based on some like complex input, and you can kind of like quickly train your system through examples. And what's interesting too is, like, let's say you've got some junior folks on your team and you got to show it to them. They can you can share it with them, and then they can fork that entire thing that you did, and safely, meaning without destroying the original, they can kind of experiment themselves and then share it back with you.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. I like that.
Yeah, that's the B2B part where you can like have I think we don't have like too many features kind of like using it, but at the moment, at least, you can create a prompt that is like shared to your team, but is like but only to your team, right? Or you can create completely like private prompts. That's the like in the end, there's like I forgot how it's called, but like privacy or something like that, like access. you can configure all of that stuff, and your teammates can like fork the prompts. They can yeah, that's our Stripe integration. It actually
Okay,
works.
cool. Yeah. So, what was the process for Stripe like? So, is there like a subscription management thing for admins? Like, is that kind of built into the SaaSkit as well?
So you need a Stripe vendor account, which I think is not trivial to create. I don't know what's required, right? So we have one through Fogbender, which is a Delaware C Corp, right? And so I remember setting it up like a year ago, and it wasn't that like, you know, you need to get, I think I had to email or send them my picture, like a California ID or something, you know, like it was something pretty serious. But if you already have one, if you have a Stripe business account, then yeah, it's actually really straightforward. It's just a couple of, you just have to like create a plan, a subscription plan, and you need to know its ID, and then you need like an API key. And actually, that was non-trivial to do. And then I initially built it with webhooks, and then Yaroslav was like, I don't think we need webhooks. So he rebuilt it with polling, basically. So like it goes to Stripe and just checks like, hey, you know, like, what's the status of this particular user?
Okay.
And the way we did it too is let's say you've got 5 people on your team, and let's say somebody bought us, and like this thing is absolutely pivotal to your workflow. So you got to be paying for it. And let's say some user, one of the 5 initially paid for it, but then that person is like, I'm leaving to a new job, or like I'm transferring to another department. So like I'm going to cancel out the subscription. So it's like B2B subscription, right? How do you do this? And so essentially the way you do this with this approach is you kind of, someone else on the team creates another subscription. And so you will in parallel run a couple of subscriptions, and then you just cancel the other one. So you can do that kind of stuff, right? Which is just sort of not obvious. I would say it's kind of not obvious, but really a requirement for any tool selling to like a team of developers. Something like that has to exist,
right? Yeah,
on some level. Yeah. Does that answer your question? I wasn't sure if that was
a bit. I was just wondering more like, how about like sending of emails for like subscription reminders, things like that. Anything like that, like invoicing. Any of that stuff?
So Stripe handles it, and our thinking is that, you know, like I see there's a question about, you know, just an alternative to Stripe. So the toolkit is, so if you go to promptswithfriends.com/eject, it's just that like URL basically. It's a pretty, first of all, it's a work in progress, but it talks about removing or replacing these technologies, and some of them are in to-do state.
Yeah, that's a to-do. Yeah.
The idea is,
I didn't see that till then, but yeah, cool.
It wouldn't be that difficult to swap Stripe for something else.
You don't right. But yeah, it will go through kind of like instructions. So like, okay, you need to remove like this function and that file from the like repo, and you will get we wrote like either really basic ones that or the really kind of like important ones.
So I like how you note that replacing Astro is going to be the hard part. Yeah.
And we basically say, yeah, we're like, you can't do it.
For people to use is probably going to be like Next, right? Which is like the most popular one and all that stuff. But yeah, there are like so many of those.
Yeah. To support all of them and have instructions for them and all that can be tough.
And especially now,
is
like
Stripe only for the US?
I'm sorry?
Someone was asking if Stripe is for people based outside the US. I think there are certain countries that you can actually be a vendor from. Like, I don't think you can do it from all of them, though. So they may be from a country that Stripe just doesn't support vendors in.
You can't do it from North Korea, but you probably can from the Netherlands. Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah, I used to work at an insurance company, and we had a big list of, like, you know, the sanctioned countries versus unsanctioned. Yeah, so I had to deal with that, and that was fun. Okay, cool. So
I was just saying that, like, about Astro, like like the obvious thing is like next, but like, okay, which next? Like they're like in a floating state right now. Like which one are you going to support? Like next is using Webpack, which is like a kind of like slower like dev experience and all that stuff. So it's like I know that's the obvious answer, but we didn't want to do that. And I think that's also, since we're not getting paid for that, that's a bit
True.
of like just kind of like charity for Astro team,
Mhm.
because those guys are like not how do I say it? Marketing wise, everyone thinks of Astro as like, is that like a thing that like generates markdown to HTML? Like, is that the only thing that it can do? So by having this kit, we can say like, no, we can build like any app with it, and it comes with a bit of like challenges on its own, but it's like, for example, we tried to like integrate Clerk. I basically wanted to have like a fork where we have like a Clerk instead of Propel, and
Mhm.
like Clerk just doesn't compile in Astro. It's like
Really?
yeah, they just like build their packages wrong. They said that like, yeah, we're going to fix it. Yeah. Like we want to support like Create React app, and that's why like we're using like the wrong configuration, so that like the real kind of like bundlers don't work with it. So it's like, okay.
Interesting. Okay.
I think actually one of the more technically interesting sections we worked on is it's first of all really hard to find. So you got to go to the GitHub repo,
Mhm.
and in the README it's hidden. So it's all the way at the bottom, talking about kind of like how it's built. And so there's two expand sections. One is under the working with code base.
Oh, there we go.
So the first one is about the ORM, and that's where we cover just like dealing with a database. It's not super trivial, but that's kind of a pretty technical, actually probably the most technical documentation that we wrote here. The second to the next section, which talks about 3 different types to render content, right? So it's client, static, and then server side render. And I think it's very informative. Like I learned a lot while editing it. Yaroslav wrote the first version. I feel like I'm way more knowledgeable about this whole like I don't know, we call it like the topic in general. And then we've run into it. So our previous product, which we launched like 8 years ago, had a fully React based blog basically, and like a bunch of articles, some of them that were automatically generated. And Google loved us. Like we got all of our leads from just folks searching for the solution that we worked on. It worked like absolute magic. And so when we tried it with Fogbender, we kind of realized that it's been many years since sort of like that original launch of the other product. And so Google actively sort of hated us because they said we're not going to be running JavaScript to understand what it is that you want us to do here. And so like it took us a long time I almost feel like that discovery led us maybe to Astro. Yaroslav can tell you more, but like we now run Astro with Fogbender, and it's basically like a single code base that has both a pretty complex React app and a blog that is, as far as Google is concerned, it's rendered on the server.
Yeah,
it works pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, awesome.
So yeah, like that section, I mean, if anyone is interested in understanding a little bit about the topic, I think it's at this point pretty well written. However, it's kind of dense, but it's pretty well written, and it's a good probably starting point.
Yeah, we got a lot of feedback of like people trying it, especially kind of like more junior people. Like, wow, I learned so much just at looking at those examples and like trying to like see what are the like all the pieces are, and which is again like writing docs, like all of that stuff is hard. When I was like setting up gRPC for Astro, like I found like 2 blogs, and like both of them were like out of date and like completely not working. So it's
Interesting.
yeah.
So our plan is to blogify this text, because I think it'll be a little bit more visible and discoverable. Yeah, I think it's cool, and there's probably a couple of more we can extract from this effort of similar value.
Yeah, I think the blogging thing's great. That's really how DigitalOcean became DigitalOcean. Like, you could search for something and they had a blog post about how to do Nginx for whatever,
just
right?
blew my
Like,
mind.
it was really cool. So, yeah, I think that's a great approach. Okay. So, how long does it take someone to actually, like, launch up this, like, from scratch? Let's say they just wanted to create some hello world software as a service.
Okay, well, I will start with that. It's really easy to start on dev. So you just like clone it and yarn dev, and that starts.
Cool.
Then we have the page that you looked at before, like eject. We have like /setup as well. So that's basically like two the opposite things, right? So one is to one is to get rid of some stuff, and the other is if you go to like /setup.
Oh, /setup. Yeah.
So that's what you get on the local version. So it will, like, the local landing will say, hey, you should go to this page and go through like setup instructions. So the only kind of like thing that we require you to install is like Node, of course, to get like the project starting. But then you need to install this like Doppler CLI. And after that, like all of it is just, you just follow some instructions, you go to like that service, copy some key, like insert it. And once you insert it, you get like the check mark that it's like it's set up.
So the way we tested this is we tried to offer Astro beanies to folks on Twitter as like a gift for helping us going through the instructions. I think basically 2 people qualified, and we sent one, but the other one works at Astro, so didn't want the beanie.
Okay.
But what we did, what else? The other thing we did is we basically posted like a job on Upwork, and it was, I think, for like $25 plus a $10 bonus if you successfully deployed to Vercel.
Okay.
And that's where most of our testing came from. And I think like and by the way, we really can't tell how long it took, but it was very clear that folks who just had a better command of English didn't have as many problems, because some of this stuff just isn't that easy to understand. That's basically the bottom line. And I'm not sure we spent a lot of time on copy. I'm not sure how to make it easier other than like, having a video, which is probably another option. But
I mean, that could be like some good open source contribution from just people helping you translate.
Yeah,
right?
that is absolutely true. But the reality is, and I was trying to track, I was like asking Yaroslav, like, okay, like, well, where are the problems? Like, where did people stumble? And almost universally, it was basically the deployment to production steps, because it probably goes like 10x in complexity of what you got to do in terms of configuration. It's still not
as visible because you have to wait for like a few minutes for it to like deploy and stuff, and no one. We basically hired like people who like this was their like first job on Upwork. So it's just some of the people just like it were like, I don't know, like PHP developers, and they were like, I should try that. And
okay.
So they did like, they never saw Vercel before, so like they just don't know how like any of this stuff works, and they still got through it, right?
That's awesome.
But this is a good way to, I think, for me at least, like, because I didn't see, I've known about Doppler for years, but I've never used it. And actually going through our own project really explained it to me, and I really appreciate it now as a solution to a really non-trivial problem. And same with PostHog. Like, I've known about PostHog for a long time, but my first real experience with PostHog is with this project, and it's really cool. It's a cool product, like obviously cool, very cool product.
So PostHog, which part of it are you using for that? Like, are you using all of PostHog, like their environment, not environment variables, feature flags, or are you mainly just using their email deliverability?
No, we're actually using it mainly for like screen recordings.
So they do a lot more than I expected. Okay.
They do everything. I mean, that's one of their problems. They do everything, but essentially the way I use it is it's kind of replacing Google Analytics, right? So I can just my goal is just, are people coming, like who's there, and then you can see who's currently on the site, and you can kind of see when they were there recently. You kind of get a sense.
If they were like struggling with something, it had like all kinds of like UI to show that.
Yeah, so we found folks like coming and then running into that Propel auth issue, for example, and then this is what we literally, like, I went to Andrew with a recording from PostHog saying, here is an example of a user.
Yeah, actual user having like an actual problem.
Yeah, like from Costa Rica.
Right.
This guy from Costa Rica came here, couldn't do anything because of a 503 from Propel. You can see it right here. And that finally, like convinced him that there was a problem. So it's a really handy tool.
Yeah.
Okay.
And going back to Doppler, so the way that Doppler works is that you can have like a team of people like sharing environment variables. And the idea is that instead of like, hey, here's like .env file through Slack, and if like something changes, you need to like talk to everyone and say that it changed. You can just like add people to your team, and then if something changed, you change it once, and next time like everyone in your team just runs this command, it will use the new value. So like the only thing that you can say on Slack is like, hey, just restart your thing. If it's not working. So if I add you to my Doppler team, you can get started instantly, right? As long as I just like invite you to my Doppler team and you like run CLI, and it will pull like my environment on your computer. And because we use like everything is in the servers, so you don't run like Postgres local or something like that. You just connect to like my instance on the internet using my credentials, and you're like up and running. So that's like, if you're on a team and like, hey, like how long is it to set up? No, just like sign up with Doppler and you're done.
Okay. Someone's asking if it's like a new tool called Unkey. I'm not sure about that.
I think it was on Hacker News yesterday. I'm not sure. Maybe.
I think Unkey is more like a lower level, kind of like a service that you build your services on top of. So I haven't looked too much into that. So
Okay.
I can kind of like look a bit into background to respond to that more.
Yeah,
precisely.
I've used like Terraform Vault before for like secret management and stuff like that, but that's typically just in our like deployment environments. So
Yeah, exactly. That's stuff you don't get the access to. That's the whole point, is like only like those like great beers have the like all the secrets, and you don't touch it.
Yep.
So we've used Gitcrypt at Fogbender, which worked okay, but like the complexity there is pretty non-trivial. You have to create a PGP key and then like, give it to the right person. And then we still have this problem of, okay, what if you're, it's kind of all or nothing, right? So either you have access to secrets or you don't. And if you have a junior engineer that you don't want to give them access to production, but you want to give them access to like some dev secrets, there's no clear way to do it. We just transitioned to SOPs, which is a simple and flexible tool for managing secrets. We don't know yet how. It's a little bit easier to administer, but basically, Doppler kind of gives you a lot of those types of operations, basically for for a cost. Like it's a per person SaaS cost.
Okay.
It's not free, but it is free up to 5 people, which is actually really generous and definitely good enough for any proof of concept team, I think. Which is why
I had a friend that recommended them to me, and I signed up for it. And now I just get these like emails saying like Doppler issue, like like they had some downtime or something. So that's the only reference I have to Doppler really right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, by the way, all these tools that we selected, they all have very generous free forever plans. So you don't, it's not a timer, right? So it's not like something that's going to turn off. So far, I mean, people change their, like GitLab changed their pricing policy, for example. It's going to happen, obviously. But so far, at least as of today, Supabase will shut down or pause your database instance if it's not being used. But you can turn it back on, for example. Fogbender has a free plan for 2 agents, which is, I think, the most generous thing in the industry right now. And all of them, if PostHog, I think it's 1 million events for free per month, which is definitely enough to see if your stuff is working or not. And then like their pricing isn't prohibitive. Not to mention, you can run it yourself if you want. It's an open source product. Like you can.
Mm-hmm.
If
Yeah, I
you're
didn't
adventurous-
realize that their feature flagging was so robust either. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of people use them for feature flagging. There's
That's
also
like
growth
A/B
book.
testing, right? They're connected.
Yeah, Growth Book is one I've heard a lot of good stuff
Yeah.
from. Like Ping uses Growth Book, like ping.gg, etc.
Which you are not using, and you're using it, which guest star.
Because guest stars means that if you guys were to do something against TOS, you're responsible, not me. Whereas Ping doesn't offer that security.
By the way, I looked into that OnKey thing. I was thinking about it correctly. It's basically, it's kind of like how upload thing is like to make to building like upload things easier. OnKey allows you to, yeah, it's pretty hard to find it. let me say it's onkey.dev.
.dev? Okay, cool.
So they allow you to use kind of like key management like in your application. So it's like if my users need to have some kind of like download keys for files or something like that. So like I use OnKey to manage that, so that like when my like microservice asks if this user can like download this file, they can go directly to OnKey instead of like storing it somewhere like in my database. So it's kind of like different product a bit from the like secret management.
Or like API keys, probably. You can use them to generate API
Yeah. So like
keys.
how you get like OpenAI API key, like OpenAI could have used OnKey to manage their keys.
It almost kind of makes sense for the SaaSkit, right? If you want,
I don't know.
Yeah,
like
if we had an API, it would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Or even if we had like further, if we had some content. I don't know. We use Supabase for kind of like role checking.
Okay,
A combination
right?
Propel
Because they do the user management, or like is Propel like managing the users?
For database, the user management. So we had like different prototypes. So there were a lot of movements in that term. So like at the moment, the way that it's set up, the Supabase we only use as a Postgres database. So you can use like other databases pretty easily in B2B SaaSkit. But for you, kind of like that checking that if you have like access to the team, right? So like if this prompt is only shared for a team, how do I check that this user belongs to that team so they can access that prompt? All of that stuff is done through like just Propel JWT basically. So they store kind of like enough information there, so we can kind of like easily check that. And
what about prompt access though? Like, is this prompt private? Same.
So the prompt, it's like in database. It's stored. The prompt has like this access type, and it belongs to that org ID and this user ID, and we get this from database first, and then we check JWT.
Yeah.
Cool. So the optional parts, those aren't actually on by default, or
yeah. So the thing
like
is that
they're just
when
easier
you go
to turn off.
when you go set it up locally, and you go to like go to /app, it's just like to open this page, we need to have a database and we need to have like authentication. Otherwise, like how are you going to access the like kind of like the admin panel or like the app panel, right? So it's like there's just no way to make it work.
Yeah, so basically, once you get through Doppler, Supabase, and Propel, it's working, and then you can add other stuff, but it is literally optional.
Yeah. So if you add a Fogbender, now you have a widget. If you add like Stripe, now you have a button that like subscribe. So it's like everything is kind of like we just check if the key is set, then we do that. If it's not set, we don't do that. So
if you add your OpenAI key as the vendor,
default
then,
one,
like the tool actually lets every user run 3 prompts per day for free, and so you can try it if you add your OpenAI key. If you don't, then that's not an option.
Yeah.
Right.
We went pretty deep.
Cool.
Yeah, so they aren't optional if you want to get exact prompts with
Yeah.
friends copy, but they're optional in a sense if you don't care about like any of that stuff, and or you just want to like set it up later, right? So like for example for Fogbender, you can build your whole app and then just turn on Fogbender because it's just like a floating widget. It's not intrusive in a sense of like in your app.
Mhm.
So that's kind of like that's the idea of just like lowering kind of like your
Cool.
barriers to entry. I don't know. I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, that's fine. So the getting started then. I just clone this down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a little shot real quick.
Do you have Yarn installed?
I have PNPM right now.
Wait, you know what you can do? I think you can. I don't know. Is that true? You can just copy the whole thing there. See that there's a little button. If you hover,
it will install Yarn for you. So you don't have to, but it's just like
yeah, you can
most
do
of
it.
the
one
people
at a
who
time,
just
but-
like want to start, they just like copy the whole thing, and it should make like everything work in one command.
Okay, and Yarn because you want to be
Yarn
able to
because
lock down the lock
we
file.
just use Yarn like at Fogbender, and it's just I know that like PNPM is like slightly faster, but it's just like I'm pretty sure this project will probably not run in PNPM. And if someone wants to create a pull request, I'm like happy for them, but it's just it's usually kind of like too much babying around like PNPM
Mhm.
ways of doing everything. I remember that like Astro pre-tier wasn't working in PNPM and all that stuff. So I just kind of like never used PNPM for
Okay.
for
I'm pretty sure I've
projects.
used PNPM for Astro before, but I might not have used that same package.
Yeah, I don't know. So like we just didn't have kind of like the bandwidth to try that. So if you want to try it, I'm all for it. But yeah, that's there are a lot
Well,
of
yeah, I
things that
actually
are
have Yarn, so we're fine.
okay, good. There are a lot of things that are like good to have that were like, yeah, if we had time, we could like add this. If we had time, we could add this. So one other thing is that not everyone has like SSH keys set up. Some people use HTTP protocol. I don't know how to use that, so like I never used it. So how do you usually pull dependencies?
like from GitHub, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I just did a git clone, and I think I am using.
If it worked, then you're using SSH.
Yeah, so it's telling me remote host identification has changed, so I think I would need to change something in my known hosts.
Oh, I see.
Because it's trying
Maybe
to use
you
my
haven't used
SSH key.
it in a long time.
But
So if you go to the repo and you just see the like the clone button, so what does it show you to? Yeah, just use this.
yeah, it might be something to call out in the docs at some point.
Yeah, I
'cause,
don't know. It's a tricky thing.
Yeah, because it's a bit scary seeing this part, right?
Yeah, it's
a
only
little
it's
bit.
only for you. I think you just like didn't clone it for like 10 years and they just changed the APs or something like that since then.
Maybe. Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah. I was actually like
Did you have
thinking,
is this a new computer?
Nope.
no, it has to be an old computer. That's the point. It's like it has like a fingerprint for this host, and it's like it's an old fingerprint. He just doesn't.
So that's
use
weird because I've
SSH.
cloned my own projects,
Yeah,
which
and
is
you
interesting.
clone them through HTTP instead of the SSH.
Maybe.
What's happening?
But yeah,
Because I know to post I have to go through SSH anyway, because I have my account locked down. Right, to actually like upload to GitHub. So I have to use SSH for Git. Right, so yeah, I think it would be weird for me to be able to be pushing via SSH.
I think you can push through HTTP. Like I never figured that part out, but we got few people like complaining about that like SSH thing didn't work for them, and apparently it's like more common.
But this would be for every project. It's not related to us. I don't think.
Yeah, just like the instructions that we give.
Why did it say? Oh, no license field.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, that might be something to fix.
could be. I never fixed that working on my projects.
Yeah, I pretty much don't like to use anything without a license, but it does say MIT licensed here.
No, it has a
Okay,
license.
So
We just
yeah, so it's just like the package JSON doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Got it. Cool. Just making sure. Yeah, package JSON not having it's totally fine. Which means yeah, you have the license file there. Cool. So yeah, this is installing.
We're likely to open source MIT open source Fogbender as well.
Oh, cool.
It's a much bigger. It's 2,000 merge requests, 10,000 commits. It's a big project.
That is a large project.
You're hearing this first. Like,
oh, this is like cool news. Oh man. Oh man. Would you like me to cut it for any potential YouTube video or anything? Up to you.
What does that mean?
Can you say it again?
So, I mean, I could maybe just like cut out the section where you said that if you weren't ready to announce it.
No,
okay,
we're not.
Just making sure.
It's not going to be, again, like we're trying to understand how to tell people that our product exists, and you know, open sourcing it. Like for real, open sourcing it might be a way to tell people that it exists. You know,
yeah, I mean, just getting it out there is a great idea. I think. Like it's just another article you can have on Hacker News, right? Like it's always good, just like good publicity.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think our problem is really that it's like even when people think like, oh my God, I really want to have a place on my customer facing dashboard where like, you know, a team of users has access to. I really want for them to be able to collaborate and communicate with my team on my website, not in Slack or Salesforce, but on my website. Like, there's no way they're going to find us. There's like no number of manipulations they're going to go through to actually find Fogbender.
Right, so like their keyword selection wouldn't actually like drill down.
Yeah, because in support, there's so much money in customer support, right? Like even though Zendesk, ServiceNow, Freshdesk, Front, Help Scout, none of those companies actually focus on supporting teams. None of meaning for their customer and supporting teams. They're all fundamentally selling. They're all making most of their money from consumer companies because that's where the volume is, right? That's where the most number of requests come from. But they own the keywords, and they're all paying stupid money to, you know, Google for anything related.
If you say B2B support, there are like 5 sponsored links.
Yeah.
Everything else is also like those companies.
Right.
Even though
and they're probably at like $10 a click.
Something about B2B support that will have absolutely nothing to do with B2B support, like at all. But they'll, you know, because their domains are so highly ranked, like that, they're going to eat that real estate. So it's been tricky. So the reason why it's tricky is because it's like you make a lot of money if you can break through, basically, right? If you manage to tell people that your tool exists in a customer support space, you could potentially make a lot of money. But you know,
you need to get there.
you need to get there. So
you can just run yarn dev at this point.
Sure. Yeah, I was just gonna look at the package JSON real quick, just to look at what the commands are. It's just proxying to Astro Dev. Yeah, CI check, full check. Sweet. Yeah, it looks great. Oh, and yeah, migrate. Nice. Yeah, because so you're using Supabase. I've never had to deal with migrating a software as a service. I've always like hosted my own SQL at that point. So, yeah, that's something new to me. I didn't even think about that problem.
Well, that's the Drizzle ORM component. And so back to that GitHub README where that first expand section. So that's where if you wanted to mess around with that, you can basically create a new table and migrate the Supabase instance to that new version of the database schema.
Yeah, we'll explain how to like add new tables. A lot of people come from like Firebase, where you just like go to UI and like click around, but it's like it's kind of like impossible to write all of those instructions for like a product, right? So like go create a users table, and it's like if they mess up one field, it's just like nothing going to work.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I've never used Drizzle either, but it seems like a
It's
lot
picking up
of
steam. I
like
think
people have talked about it. Go ahead,
yeah,
sir.
I think the project is like 3 or 4 years old, but it's picking up steam kind of like recently, and they
Mhm.
added a lot of features. Like, uh, I think like the one feature that they were supposed to add recently, but I don't remember if they did or not. But there's like this kind of like idea of when you do local development, you can just write your TypeScript definition of like I want a table with like 3 fields, and it will go and create that like changes in database locally. So you can edit edit the schema, run the command. It's like it's already working, and then you can create like migration files and all that stuff for kind of like production. But locally, they have this working with MySQL and SQLite, I think, and they were working on Postgres. So like we don't have these instructions for that yet because I don't think they published it yet. But that's
Mhm.
kind of like a nice. I think that like Prisma did this first with like nicer kind of like local environments.
Yeah, so we use Elixir and Ecto for Fogbender, and
Yeah, I love Ecto. Ah, it's my favorite
Ecto is
ORM. Or
amazing.
like
But
technically query builder.
if you're developing locally, right, and you're not quite sure what's going to be in that migration, like what we have, maybe there's a better way to do it, but what we have to do, and mind you, it's not like we do it all the time, right? But you basically go to the same migration, you like change it, then you delete it from the database manually. You drop that row.
Yeah, or a rollback and like
And then you
maintain.
literally like
Yeah.
manually drop the tables, drop the indexes,
Yeah.
drop the version itself, and then rerun the migration. It's a like crazy pain, really, to be able to like. I would not want to add that to any toolkit, as
Interesting. Okay.
instructions. So it's a hack, really.
Yeah.
And so I think what Yaroslav is talking about is that being able to basically be a little bit more like user friendly toward the developer who's just figuring out what actually needs to exist inside of that migration that'll eventually go upstream, but like not until it's understood what it looks like. That process, at least for us in Ecto right now, it's pretty painful.
Interesting. Yeah, so I've got an Ecto like API running, like a Elixir, and when I was doing some migrations for that, it was actually like easier to throw some of my like fixture data for especially like validation tables and stuff right in there with the migration, like during the
Yeah, it's incredibly flexible.
Yeah. So that was cool for me.
Migrations themselves are amazing, and you can go
Yeah.
backwards and forward. So it's kind of whatever you want.
Okay, cool. Real quick, thanks for the follows. Alina, Moonlit, Authentic Developer, and EMR Saskin. Thank you. Or Sakin. I don't know how to pronounce that. Sorry.
Yeah. So what you got here is our like kind of like demo that doesn't require you to install anything, to run anything. So you can go through like /setup/eject. We have few demos, but like I haven't finished that one yet. But there's like a just a section that I want to add eventually of just like some kind of like small demos of like how to build apps basically with Astro, right? That's yeah. So you see that you don't have like the check marks, right? So you need to like install Doppler CLI to get through like to the first step.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Probably gonna need most of these. Yeah, that's fine. All right, so I'll just kill that down. Paste multiple lines, and let's get it going.
Yeah, it's not the fastest process. Like macOS, like Brew, it's like it likes to take time. But yeah, it's technically possible to like just skip on Doppler, but it's just like the instructions how to do that without Doppler are just going to be kind of like too too hard to maintain, so that we haven't attempted that.
So real quick, first question, RevSkill asks, are you hiring? That's a very common question these days, I'm sure.
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment. That's fine.
And not at the B2B SaaSkit.
Yeah, not for B2B SaaSkit either, right?
But we are
you know,
looking for
eventually.
open source contributions.
Yeah.
If any.
Yeah, I
For
would say
example,
anyone out there trying to contribute, translations for their docs would be huge.
translations, you can add, right now it's text only, but you could potentially generate images as well. It would not be a very difficult change. Or add support for plugins, which we don't have right
Yeah,
now. I see that's a
right?
question.
Fivel, great question. So currently no support for plugins,
I
but
think plugins is
it's open
just
source.
the GPT, the chat GPT. It's not the part of the APIs, is it?
I'm not sure yet. I think you're right, but it's probably something they'll try and get eventually. I don't know. I'm not sure. But yeah, it is interesting, like the way the plugins work with ChatGPT. Like you can just teach it like how to like fetch from a URL or like, yeah, I don't know. It's like really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, like the point with this particular product itself, Prompts with Friends, like we don't really intend to make it
It's not an
maybe,
official startup yet.
No, it's not a startup. It's just an example. Like it's an example that attempts to be potentially useful, right? I mean, I've had a dream that maybe like we get 1,000 users paying us $69 a month and great. But chances are no. Like why? Plus, you can just use your own key instead of paying us. Like cheaper.
Exactly.
But I also don't have a really good understanding of like how people collaborate on creating prompts. I don't really know how big of a market it is today. Like I know that a lot of folks who are doing like lead gen, selling lead generation services, they're definitely using it using prompts to extract data from unstructured, just like basically processing a lot of unstructured data. So like, but what's their workflow? Who knows? But
so I don't even know if it needs to be with friends, but like the forkability aspect of it sounds really nice because like Levels.io has that photo AI like service that he makes, and like he could just go back and like fork from a prompt or something theoretically. Like he's not using ChatGPT for it, but it's an idea at least, right? That forkability I think is really cool.
Yeah, the friends that's really like the B2B aspect, because we wanted to make it so that a customer can have a team involved. Yeah, for sure.
To promote Fogbender, because it's the only thing that does that, right?
It is, unless you use a shared channel in Slack, which
but you guys do have like a wiring for that too, right? Just to like support like a broader customer base. I thought I saw that you had a Slack integration.
Yeah. We have 2 different Slack integrations, and one of them, I'm just writing a blog post about it. One of them actually supports shared channels, and it gives you like a single point of monitoring for all your support. So basically, you can have a channel in Slack called Fogbender, and whenever you get a message in a shared channel, it'll show up in that Fogbender channel. Whenever you get a message in if it's connected, right, in the widget, in the web widget, it'll come in there. So in other words, if you've got like a large company with like a few thousand people, the question is like, how do you know what's happening in customer support? Given that for a B2B company, you may have multiple front doors, you may have multiple places where support comes from. So it could be email, it could be Slack, it could be a web widget, or it could be Microsoft Teams. And so the idea here is you can literally have a single channel that you can monitor, and then like you can kind of see what the activity looks like. And then unless you have the permissions inside of Fogbender to respond to customers, this is more of a safety issue than a pricing issue, I would say. You actually can't screw it up. Like you can't respond in Slack and like send something inappropriate to a customer. But if you do have an account in Fogbender that enables you to respond, you can actually respond from that channel in Slack. So it's pretty flexible. I think once again, our challenge is like there's never been any marketing involved in our company, so like no one knows we exist or those integrations exist. And that's
product-led growth, etc. is great approach.
Yeah, but that allows you to have like the same company basically to have like official Teams channel, official like Slack channel, and official widget channel, and it's like no one in marketing is going to go to like Slack, and no one out of developers is going to leave Slack. So it's like as long if you're supporting like big enough company, it's kind of like silly to try to put them all in like one place.
Mm-hmm. And here's a question about Fogbender in general. Is there like a dashboard to see like resolved versus unresolved, like, you know, like the support tickets themselves kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's the agent UI basically.
Okay, cool.
And it's got some work. It needs some work, but yeah, essentially, and the way it works is every B2B customer has a room that never leaves. It's called triage. And it's like there forever, and that's where every conversation starts. And what's interesting about these conversations is some of them get resolved on the spot. Like you can have a situation where a colleague sees a message from another colleague and literally resolves the question on the spot with no participation from the vendor. And then then the next step is the vendor could resolve it, right? And then the next step is the vendor is like, I can't resolve this right now. Let's open an issue. What is an issue? Well, we need some context. So we take that conversation, it could be 10 messages and some images, and we literally create what we think of it as a named thread inside of Fogbender, and we're going to contextually attach it to like a ticket in Jira that either already exists or we're going to create it automatically right on the spot. And so
sorry, I was going to say, what integrations do you have, like besides Jira, like, you know, UTrack, etc., things like that?
Not huge. So we have GitLab, GitHub, Linear, Asana, Height,
that's
Jira,
cool, and
Trello.
Awesome.
I might have forgotten one, but I think that's it. Yeah, and we built them all ourselves, and it's really painful.
Okay, so there's no like blueprint for someone to write their own like integration to something like
so normally the way you would generally do something like this is you would use like a okay, what's that banking API, common banking API?
Like the Plaid API?
The Plaid, yeah, it's like Plaid 4x, right? So there's we are using merge dev for CRM integrations because like there's no way we're writing a Salesforce integration or a HubSpot integration. We used to use another company called SaaSkit, but they went out of business, unfortunately. That was a really painful migration. But we didn't find anything like this for issue trackers. And also like what we're doing with those issue trackers is really quite deep and involved. And so we ended up writing it ourselves. However, now we have like a Elixir behavior or like an Erlang/Elixir behavior that defines what is expected from every integration. So now like there is a blueprint, and a new developer could basically just look at the behavior file and implement all the functions that it expects.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, it's okay. But every one is just painful to write.
Yeah, if we go open source, you could like see all of that stuff
That's right.
Implemented, but it's like it would be like your task to try to kind of like get it running on like outside of Fogbender, I guess. Like,
well, you need to create apps like for like if you want to support Trello, like you need to create a Trello app and like
like we have to run this code to go. So say we don't support Trello, right? And you're like, I want you guys to support Trello. So if you write the same integrations as the other ones that we have, right? We run all of this code and we like make sure that it works. If you're like saying, hey, we have something like behind the firewall and we want to have like completely kind of like just custom API that we need to implement, this is where we need to create like custom API like adapter, right? And they will use kind of like that, and that's where you can use Anki.
Okay, cool.
That's true.
Yeah, that makes sense too. Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's look at the install. Looks like we're still doing some Python stuff. Good old homebrew.
If you don't run brew often enough, it will just like update everything that you have on your machine, and it's going to be like undeterminately like from 5 minutes to like 5 hours.
Yeah. It's usually been a little quicker than the 5 hours for me, but yeah, it is going through a bit. I think there was some way I could have made it do just the individual cask. I forget that command though.
We use Nix in Fogbender as I don't know what's the word for it, to manage.
It's a package manager. Yeah.
It's also we're using it. We're also using NixOS to actually host the it's a it's
Backend, yeah.
yeah, host the backend.
Yeah, there's a streamer here on Twitch that is a very big NixOS proponent because he does a lot of DevOps and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, but we just did this massive project to basically rebuild our architecture to be SOC 2 compliant.
Yeah.
Right. So that's that was essentially a costly mistake. I would say we should have really done some of that stuff on day zero.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that there are some shortcuts we could have taken, like use some service.
Yep. That's one of the big things we do at the company I work at now. Like we maintain some of the compliance, like, stuff that you got to do like on like Kubernetes clusters. So we can like give you action items to like solve some of that stuff, which is cool.
I think it was a good exercise because everything is a lot more secure, just from a topology, like a architecture topology perspective. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because I had to update Nix on my local machine, and even though this is like a M1, MacBook Air, it's pretty fast, and it just took forever.
Really brutal.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I mean, it downloads a lot of stuff. But the cool thing is once it's there. It takes you can go get coffee like while Nix is installing, right? Like if you're a new developer, say joining Fogbender, right? Okay, so you basically run a command, then you go get coffee, like coffee plus a pastry, right? Or a couple pastries, or you can even do like a jogger on the block, right? And then you come back, and then it's working. You don't have to do anything else. There's no and I've been at companies where it takes a day or two to get started. On localhost, so it's pretty nice to be able to. And there is some degree, the idea is like we guarantee that all the packages there are exactly the same as we're using in production, down to like headers, right? Like
okay. And is that a Docker container that you have that all wrapped up in, or are you still using like VMs like Vagrant style? Like to do the NixOS like
Nix.
install.
It's
just Nix directly.
Basically replaces. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought I'd have to run it inside of like a VM. Okay.
Yeah, it will run like native Postgres, native like Elixir, native like
cool.
everything.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it's
and again, running Elixir or Beam, let's just call it Beam. It wants to live on. It wants to be as close as possible to the hardware. Like when you're running on EC2. Who knows how close you really are to the hardware, but you're definitely closer than if you're running in a container. So that's and it's like one big machine. The only thing there is the Beam runtime, and it doesn't do anything else, and it's happy serving whatever the 32 CPUs that it's scheduling on top of. And it's
everything's
like
message
1%.
passing. I really like Elixir, like a lot of the ideas behind it. It's cool.
Yeah, less than 1% average like CPU utilization.
Yep. Yeah, I have a massively oversized EC2 instance for like my chat overlay that we're covering up right now because it's a service for other people to sign up for and stuff. But yeah, I didn't realize that I wasn't going to need all that space, and now it's just too much work to downsize it. So I just paid the bill.
we had to upsize our CI machine because it was continuously running out of various types of space. So actually that's another really good side effect of this SOC 2 upgrade.
Okay, cool. Have you ever run into the issue in Beam of like declaring too many atoms? I guess there's a maximum amount of atoms in Elixir that's crazy to me. I didn't even think
it's
about
in Beam. And I think you can change it. It's a setting, so you can bring it up to the map. But basically, if you're doing that, there's a problem with your code.
Right, because you're defining too many atoms.
You just have to know about that, and the idea is that sometimes when you like parse JSON or something like that, and it could return like keys as strings or keys as atoms, and you just kind of like have to know that you need to use strings because there's like a limited amount of atoms, and it's just a thing that kind of like unfortunate kind of like work that you have to think about. But like once you figure out where like the thing is that is like using all of those atoms, you just replace it with strings, and We don't have we
There are
don't
multiple constants like this in the runtime. So like there's a maximum number of processes, there's a maximum number of ets
Yeah.
tables, and you just need to
Mhm.
be aware of some. It's much more
Real.
likely to hit the inode limit, which
Yeah,
we have.
true. Okay, fun.
But that's not.
What
That's
was the
not.
workaround for that?
Oh no, that's just that's just a system level setting. You just need to make sure that it's as big as it possibly can.
Yeah,
be.
when you start your process, there's just like a flag that you just pass a bigger number. But we just try to write our software the way that it's like it doesn't create those items. And
Yeah.
the only problem that I like remember like related to atoms that we actually had in our like kind of like in production, there is this thing that you can serialize basically like every data type in like Erlang Elixir, and you can take I don't know, I don't remember. Yeah, I think it was just like a kind of like JSON looking thing. So it was just like a key and value and just some like security token basically. And we would serialize that and like send over the email like serialized version, but just like encrypted or something like that. And the idea is that we can later kind of like check if the encryption is right. That it's the same idea how like JWT works. We know that like we generated it, only our code can like unencrypt it, but then it will try to do this like binary to term, it's called. So it's like turn any serialized object into like real object. And this operation is potentially dangerous because of those atoms. If you have an atom and there's like an attacker, it's not as dangerous if it's like encrypted, but just imagine that you have like a query parameter on your web server or something like that. Attacker can generate like any key, so that this will create like atom for each request. So if they know about this and they can find like this basically like endpoint, right, that does this, they can just like generate 100,000 or whatever like number of atoms, and your system could potentially like just die.
Interesting.
This is something no pen test company is ever gonna do.
Yeah, they will probably not know about this. But like the problem is that the best practice is when you use this like deserialize basically function, best practice is to pass parameter like don't create new atoms when you see ones.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that like if you encrypted that token, you use that atom and it's like it's known atom now. So after server restart, if you click on the email link before new tokens were created, that atom was unused.
Interesting.
And you couldn't like sign in with email links. So that was like our kind of like biggest issue with like atoms, and we just like replaced it with strings, and it works fine now.
Exactly. Yeah, the magic of the atom is basically that it's like one special thing on like in the VM that you can reference from any like process theoretically, right?
Yeah,
but it's still like you're not redefining all the strings, and you're not duplicating them in RAM as like individually like separate strings.
Yeah, it's somewhat like close to like how symbols in like JavaScript work. It's just like here's the thing, and it's like it's optimal in terms of memory, because if you need to create an array with like 1,000 atoms, it's going to be really compact as compared to an array of like 1,000 strings, because each string is going to take its own like place in memory and all that stuff.
The way I think about it more is like in Python, the numbers 0 through 256 are all like hard-coded like references instead of actually just like being a scalar value, which is interesting. So yeah. Okay, so it looks like I got Doppler CLI installed.
Okay, that's good. It took a long time for you, by the way.
We're good.
It usually goes faster. But yeah, so the first step in like our setup script is to run yarn dev now through Doppler CLI, so that it can get access to those kind of like environments. And I guess like first step is to log in, right? Because you need to create an account.
Right. Let me go do that real quick. I'll have to maybe hide my screen while I do it. Give me just a sec. Maybe I can just use Google.
I don't even think you have to hide much at first.
Okay,
I mean,
cool. Just blew
you're
my
going
mind.
to show your like email or something like that, but
that's fine. Yeah, people see that all the time. It's publicly available on GitHub. You know,
It's mine too.
it's gonna be hard to hide it. Do I need to zoom out? So do I go to GitHub to handle this?
Yeah, you got to go to GitHub. Yep.
Oh,
That's
interesting.
that's pretty unclear. See, there's a notification up in the top right. I think that might be it.
Okay, good
I
call.
never saw that before. What's happening?
Or maybe
maybe it's in settings.
What are you guys talking about?
I remember this, and I remember being pretty stuck there for a second. But what does it say? The copy on the Doppler site?
Hold on. Okay, so they don't have one asking there. So let me go. It's saying just you have initiated a request. Please log into your Doppler account to confirm this change.
Oh, okay. You got to sign into Doppler, not
Which is weird because it says I'm logged in because there's a sign out button, which is so strange. So they.
Yeah, I think.
Wrong button.
Mhm.
There we go.
Yeah.
Maybe don't allow.
No, did you initially sign in?
I think I might have signed up with something else previously.
Can you
it
try
might be
the
my
Google?
Google.
Yeah, that might be
good call.
So it might be the reconciliation process actually.
I did it with a password before, I think. Hold on. Oh, this is going to be the fun part. Now I got to remember this.
We used to have a product that.
By the way, I'm
enabled-
pretty sure your audience probably like can't hear us because you don't add, you don't have like OBS source on this scene.
Ooh, yes, you're right. They can't hear you yet. I could add you guys to it. 1 second. Let me switch back. Yeah. I'm going to have to like reset a password, I think. So that's fun. So yeah, let me just copy these.
At least we believe you
sources.
that you had a Doppler account.
Exactly. Yeah, no big deal. I thought just saying like the incident reports would have revealed that, but you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so
that's clearly like a proof.
Mm-hmm. Go.
Is there a difference between using? I think it's just like a security measure on Dopplers, and they're like, hey, you're signing in with like that email or that like GitHub with this email, but we don't want to let you like in that account unless we verify that you actually have access to it. So a lot of services do that. They will have, if you have an account, you need to like add service to an account first before you can sign with it.
Oh, they're using alerts when you reset your password. I haven't seen a JavaScript alert on like a production application in ages.
I think we use that on process trends. I think you'd like before you delete something, it will just show like an alert. That's like
Okay.
old school.
Yeah, I mean they're the worst because they pause the entire JavaScript thread.
Yeah. But the good part about alerts is that like you don't have to like download some like UI library or what.
Right, exactly. Okay, so here we go.
Yeah, we should send that to Doppler as well to like improve their copy a bit.
Yeah, it was a little confusing.
They should be in here, really. It's just, I mean, this is gold for them. If only they knew.
Yeah, exactly. Ah, 14 characters, huh?
Do you use something like 1Password or a password manager?
Only for things that I actually care about, like propagating. and I don't really care that much about this
Yeah,
one.
my thing is the opposite. Like if I don't care about websites, like I just go straight to like password manager. I don't want to like think about this website.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, like even Firefox has a utility for generating a password for me, but then I'd have to like remember that Firefox did that, and I'd end up resetting it again. But yeah, they even use an alert for your password has been updated. Wow. Okay. Cool.
I enjoy that part actually. Like I enjoy like all the kind of like retro things, like this like HTMX craze that is happening on Twitter, all of that, like let's use forms, like I enjoy all of that stuff. This is
So I mean, let's use forms makes a lot of sense to me. Using alerts doesn't. You're already in JavaScript land, you know. All right, here we go. So log in. Just enter this.
I wish browsers just like had kind of like better UI for all of that stuff.
I mean, there's a proposal for like a better like modal, etc. and stuff like that. So yeah, that'll be awesome.
So did we lose a bunch of viewers because of this?
Not really.
No, we're at 105. We're actually at more.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I see 83.
As far as the number I see. So it's spiking here and there. Yeah. I think technically we were probably at around like the 70 to 80 the whole time anyway, but you know, Twitch kind of like spits out what they estimate people at rather than like what they're actually seeing. Oh, and now I got to do this part. Sorry.
People probably enjoy watch some people suffer, so it's so everyone is liking this. But yeah, depending on your setup, this step could take like 5 minutes or or a bit more.
Workplace name. We'll just say Mr. Sir. Next.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
God.
as I said, the idea is that once you kind of like have everything set up, you can have all kinds of kind of like projects and permissions and like teams of users like having access to all of this stuff. I know that like Vercel has their own kind of like Vercel env or something, but that's a bit more kind of like coarse grained. So like everyone who has access to your Vercel, they have like access to every secret, and they can just like read it. If in GitHub, if you store something, it's just like you can like write, but you can't read. But on Vercel, it's like it's just like free for all. So it's and again, it's like Vercel is like not the don't like to say about like all the kind of like thing like complicated kind of like things like that. So you have to like just know that this is the case. Okay, apparently you even have the I see.
Fine, it was quick enough, I think.
Yeah, so you're like authenticating your like particular computer for this thing, because again, like each user can have
generating
like multiple
a token
computers
and all that. Okay, and this is most likely just doing some polling or something at the CLI level, right? So cool. Already did that, so probably not usable again, I hope.
Yeah, so now you need to run like Doppler run yarn dev, so that Doppler run and like any command, it will just like run this command with like keys. I didn't want to do so that like script runs Doppler automatically, but maybe we should.
No, I think it's good to understand what's
Yeah.
going on. Yeah, we don't really want to shield.
Okay, so I probably need to create some secrets then first, right?
So I don't really see your message. So can you kind of like explain what's happening there?
So it's saying unable to fetch secrets from the Doppler API. You must specify a config.
So you did
reading
run...
secrets from fallback file. The fallback file does not exist.
I think go back to the setup.
Yeah, I think you skipped like a step.
Probably.
Yeah.
You basically need to like explain to Doppler that this is your project. This is like the project that you're going to kind of like work on. Like in this.
So you did 1 and 2.
Oh, I didn't create a project yet, so we haven't done that part yet.
Yeah, or you can like select existing one, depending on like how.
We should make it easier to copy that stuff.
All right, cool. So we did that part.
And that's the setup step. It's kind of like how like NVM works or like Volta or something like that, where it's like it links kind of like this folder to like that
Okay.
project.
Yeah, so it creates a context essentially that becomes persistent.
All right. And then it's the name of my thing. That is third. Cool. Created a config and a project. Nice.
Yeah, so now you should be able to. Oh yeah, we have like this. This is just to show like the the green check mark. We need to like store something to know that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Might as well.
We need to check that you actually like read
And
the
so
instructions.
so you see that green check mark on the right?
Hold on, I gotta bring this back up. So theoretically, it would be now the dev one.
Yeah, this one.
Cool, because yeah, I was showing the actual website. So let me just close that. I'll have to refresh that in a sec. We're done.
Yeah, so you have your first check mark. That's all like on top right.
Awesome. Yep. Cool. So then, yeah, authentication with Propel. You would go and set that up, right? Create an account, which I don't think I've done yet.
We're sending so many users to Propel.
Mm-hmm.
By the way,
You should have like a special link or something, right? With like a ref.
Affiliate link. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've had 87 people create accounts so far in Propel.
Nice.
Yeah, not like a
For prompts with friends, right?
for prompts with friends.
We don't track the like the local ones.
Yeah, we don't know who. Yeah.
Right. Okay, cool. Look and feel, meh.
It's
Good
early
enough.
days.
Yeah. Determine how they can do it. Password lists. We'd have to create like the GitHub app and such.
Yeah, so GitHub is like optional step, so you can you can
just
just
curious.
use like magic links or like in dev you can just like sign up as any user and it will
Cool.
let you in.
Okay.
So
We'll just leave that.
It doesn't
And secure Propel Auth, their magic links are really slow to arrive because what do they use for email delivery?
I don't remember.
But
they were saying us basically like they at the moment they don't have
Postmark.
like
They use Postmark, and Postmark is a great service. The only problem, and I know this from our own experience from 10 years ago. So our first product used Postmark for outbound delivery, email delivery, and it was awesome because it like lets you you really have like a fantastic experience as the administrator, right? But man, they're slow. Like if you're relying on them to sign in, and this happened, I was like doing a call, I would demo call with an influential blogger this 10 years ago, and it took me forever to get him on this call, and my goal was for him to like sign in, check out the product while we were on the call. And sure enough, like he had to confirm his email, and it took like 25 minutes for that message. And he was like, yeah, I gotta go.
Yeah.
And so that was the catalyst for us to stop using Postmark. We switched to SES. No developer experience, right? Like it doesn't exist. You have no idea what's going on, but it's absolutely instantaneous.
Okay.
And what's crazy, right, is that it's been 10 years and Postmark still has problems with email delivery times. I can't believe it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, this is literally like the most important thing you need to do as like an email delivery service. You got to get the email over there, and if Amazon can do it, it's not like physics says no. It's absolutely it's absolutely possible. And but like double digit minutes, Yaroslav and I were initially kind of testing this. We actually just removed magic link sign up for prompts with friends, because we realized that people were just going to walk away, just like they kind of walk away when they literally can't get the auth form there because Propel Auth is doing a 503. Like similarly, right? You can't sign in, you don't see an email, you're gone.
Yep.
It's really just kind of unbelievable that some of these absolutely rudimentary things are enormous obstacles to adoption.
So email is tough, right? I think that's why like SendGrid is so like strict about it, because they have to do so much work to make sure they don't make it onto like spam lists from the domains they're sending from and stuff.
Yeah.
And I know I've had like deliverability issues with Mailgun and Mailjet before. Like some people, it's just instant spam, like in their junk and everything, rather than actually like just getting to you. And it doesn't even matter if you have SES and all like your domain stuff set up. It's still just like, well, it came from Mailjet. You don't know.
Yeah, that's a huge problem. But you know, Postmark is an old company. They've been around. Like they're I'm sure that they're I don't know what the terminology is, but
so
like,
Mailjet and Mailgun are just as old, right? They were both purchased by Cinch recently, but like they were the competitors that made Mandrill recognize that they couldn't compete in the process anymore, really.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised actually if Postmark is older. But yeah,
Possibly.
like similar era. And Postmark has also been acquired, by the way, which is why I'm not surprised that like they didn't bother to fix the time.
Wait, who'd they get acquired by? Is it Cinch?
No, I think it was private equity.
Okay. Yeah, that's
it's interesting.
I really hate the company Cinch now because they bought Mailgun and Mailjet and they're letting it just die.
Yeah,
like, it's so annoying.
Postmark was completely, I think it was bootstrapped. Like I don't think they've ever raised $1 of outside funding.
Oh wow.
Kind of a trip.
And then they sell to VC or like something, right? Like
well, that actually makes sense because I think that's probably how they could make the most bank for their.
Okay.
That's my guess. Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. Let's see. So, password login. We're good.
Step 2 is to set up a front end, and that's like basically you just need to like set up redirect correctly.
In the test tab.
Yeah. So yeah, front end integration. It's at the bottom.
It's no longer the test tab though.
No,
test
like
tab of
here,
front end
inside.
integration. I missed that part. Here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's where it was. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
And they're like this is like a course basically stuff, so that they know what kind of like domain it is like safe to use, and you need to add a redirect to /app.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. It's not going to be like the end of the world if you don't do that, but yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so now I think we go to like backend integration.
Configuration user schema in the sidebar.
Yeah. So it's just going to make like the website look better, but
Sure. Yeah.
you can kind of like adjust that for your application. So like, yeah, I think we use name and profile.
We're gonna do all of it. Yeah, why not?
Oh, sure. It's just like more fields when you sign up. That's
but if you do it through auth, but we're not doing the OAuth, yeah, never mind. Get it out of there.
Yeah, so we need profile. I mean, yeah, it doesn't matter. So it's just like when you create a prompt, it will show like, hey, this user created a prompt, and that's the information we use. It's optional because if you don't set it up, we just like use your email or something. I don't remember, but like it's just for your application, you have to kind of like figure out if you want to everyone have a username or a name. I think they have. I think name in in Propel have to be like a first name and a last name. It's not just like a name. So
okay.
Different applications could have like a different requirements for that, and yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Everyone does this differently, and there's kind of like no winning.
Right. Okay. Public auth URL looks something like that. We just saw that. That was over in.
Yeah. So you go to backend integration.
Okay.
And that's where like all the keys that we need for like thing to work. So like auth URL is basically like the hosted URL, hosted UI where you can go and like log in, or we need that URL to go to like request like fetch for your tokens and all that stuff.
And real quick, later, Cohawk. Yeah, thanks for hanging out. You enjoyed it so far? Interesting project. Fun to hear about anyone using Elixir in the wild. Yep. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty rare. Let's do, what was it? Doppler set something? Doppler secret set.
Yeah. So if anyone wants like a fun project would be to have like a form right here in the app so that
Right.
you can just like put stuff there so you don't have to like fiddle with Doppler CLI.
Right.
Yeah, so you can use like two, basically, there are like two workflows how to set secrets. One is like set a key value, and the other is like set just key without value. So it shows up some kind of like 2E to kind of like ask you for input. That is very helpful for stuff like public verifier key, because it's a like a long key and you can't pass it as a value.
All right, so firing this back up.
So it's you haven't finished like the whole setup, so it's like not you're not going to get like the full marks for that yet.
Yeah, I still want to like make sure I'm running this. So I need the auth key in there, and
I see.
that's a new
Your
API
instructions.
key.
Yeah. I see what you did there.
Yeah,
So
I'm loading the instructions from here.
Yeah,
so
you need
I
both.
should probably load up the other.
You need verifier key and you need API key, secret key.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have link on the public one.
Okay, so now they got these. We gotta do verifier key.
Yeah, and
It's
you
the public
run
key.
this without the value, and it will like ask you for the value.
Oh, so then I could theoretically keep it hidden.
So all of those keys are like public, so like no one is going to like do anything with them.
Right. Okay.
Oh,
Cool.
okay. So you have to you have to be in the same.
Got to be
folder.
in the right folder.
Yeah. So this is how to like pass the multi-line things. Yes. Now you press enter dot enter or enter dot enter. Dot like a yeah.
Okay. All right. So we got that.
And you need
issuer
to create like a secret key, which is like not important that like it will leak on stream, but that's the key to ensure that this is your backend. So like other people like can't access your users basically. So like if you leak it on stream, someone else could go to a Propel server and ask them, hey, say me like all the emails of users that signed up for your localhost application. So it's not that big of a deal.
Makes sense. I'm gonna hide it real quick, just cause. All right. So create a new key. So Dana, that's actually literally what they just said. If you'd like to help improve it, you can add to it because B2B SaaSkit's fully open source.
Yeah, and it's a fun exercise in like open sourcing stuff. So like I have a ton of open source stuff that is like someone maybe even like using, but like no one can like creates issues or like pull requests and all of that stuff. So I wonder how like B2B SaaSkit is going to be I don't know, like accepted by public or like used and so on. So that could be like a fun fun experience.
Yeah, there's always ways to improve it. Okay, so we got that key. And then Doppler run yarn dev. And yeah, we're showing it. Whatever. Yep, I just totally undid all that anyway.
Okay, it's picking up on port 301. I think you have like you probably just run.
Oh, I
like,
left
two
it
of them.
running. Yeah, good call.
Because you switched to the other tab
Yep.
for secrets. Yeah, this is like one of those things that like you have to like restart it to pick up the new secrets.
I was just hoping I could like switch to the other tab so I didn't have to lose the setup screen.
Yeah.
Because the moment we kill it, Astro kills it too.
Are you sure it's on the right port now?
3000? Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so you got the like the second check mark. Unfortunately,
Cool.
you also got the number 6 or whatever. That's just like
Interesting.
yeah, the problem is that like there is no way for us to check if you did that.
Okay.
So we give it kind of like give it out too early, and I'm not sure how to fix it. It's basically like it's a proper auth setting. So you like if you set it up, it's there. If you didn't set it, it's like it's not there. So like I wonder if we can kind of like figure this out. But yeah,
Right, maybe just like a yellow check or something instead. Like I don't know.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm thinking of just like for some of them, it has to be kind of like a manual step. Like, have you done this? Yes. So like,
Right.
that's that's the only check that we can do.
Okay. Looks like next Series G out there is on the Vercel step. Not done with the optional ones. Pretty straightforward. Nice.
Oh, that's cool.
All right, now time for a Supabase account.
Yeah, that's a like interesting question about like the services. Like technically, we could use I don't know like Netlify instead of Vercel. Technically, we can use like some other database, and it creates like those kind of like forks, right? So like how in Create T3 app, when you create it, it's like, do you want this or that? Like, right? They have
Yeah,
four
Next
options.
has a whole folder of like with, Propel, with
Yeah.
whatever, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
it's kind
like
of cool that they provide those examples.
Yeah, but in Next, like you can't like you can't select like I want like 5 of those, like 5 out of those like 50.
Yeah, no, they're more just example like
Yeah.
projects, right? Exactly.
So I like I have an ambition of like creating like kind of like examples of other setups. So like using I don't know like Netlify instead of Vercel and all of that stuff. But it seems kind of like impossible to do that. By the way, you have to copy that password because we will like ask for it later.
Okay.
It's a bit like I actually like complained to Supabase about it. It's like creating a password seems like so kind of like PHP shared hosting.
A little bit, yeah.
So that's kind of like it. That's the whole setup that you need for
Supabase. Okay.
Supabase.
And then I would just
yeah, you just need
edit.
to have like this password. And I guess like a DOM database URL.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna hide this again and remember to clear my CLI real quick.
Yeah, just make sure that you didn't lose that password because you would have to like reset it again.
Yep.
We had like different instructions at first. It was like create an account and then like reset your password like at this step. But it's not the easiest step to kind of like to explain how to do it in the right order.
All right, so database set URL.
But yeah, that's kind of like the thing that we're doing with, I guess like trying with B2B SaaSkit is to have all of those kind of like setup instructions, hopefully with like optional fields if you don't need them, and then we have instructions how to kind of like get rid of the stuff if you don't want to use it.
Okay, cool.
So if you don't like I don't know like Tailwind, you can just remove it and use your own UI stuff. But it's impossible for us to have like a CLI where we ask you all the like 15 CLI options and have like 15 versions of our software, right? Like with MUI, whatever the other ones are. I don't I don't really like follow that, Phil.
Mm-hmm. All right, so navigate to connection string.
Yeah, that's where you get the host name.
I see project URL. I don't see connection string in here for some reason. But it's basically just the subdomain at Supabase, right?
Yeah, let me quickly check that. It's funny, like few of them like changed UI while we were writing instructions. So
Right.
I wonder if that the same thing happened here. So when you go to settings, so it's like project settings, and then go to like general database, it will have connection streams.
Ah, okay, cool. There we go.
Yeah. And yeah, so this is like the only way that we use Supabase is we just use their databases because they have like a nice free plans and all that stuff. So, and it's like I don't know, like good company.
Yeah, seems cool.
You can technically use any kind of like a Postgres database. You can use like just locally. You can just like Docker.
Okay, cool.
Start something, right? But again, that's the question of like, are we going to write examples in the docs and all of that stuff for like every possible variation of that stuff?
Right, exactly. Okay, so I should be able to switch back now. Dev should be up there.
I wonder why it's showing 404. It's like, is it possible that you have like something else running on that board?
No. So, yeah, I don't get it. I think it's basically when they try to contact the dev server, they get a 404
that UI
from
looks
that.
like Next.js.
Yeah. So I think it's Astro actually literally just checking the. I think it's Vite technically checking for the Vite dev server, and it doesn't find it, but it's still like dynamically loaded into the browser, so they can replace it with any HTML.
So I know that like the way Next.js takes port, you can run you can run Astro and Next.js at the same time on the same port.
Oh, really?
I don't know how
didn't know
they do that, but it just looks like you have like Next.js running on port 3000, and when Astro is down, you're routed to that one instead of Astro. Yeah, I saw that like a few times locally, so it just looked like
okay.
it looks
Hold
like
on.
that.
I might have. Nope. So, yeah, that's SvelteKit on 5173. I could have some 3000 going right now. That's 5174.
Because that UI is like not Astro UI, so that's why it's like so.
Yeah, it might be my Vexilla server. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
So hold on, let me look. The fact that they can both run at the same time is very interesting to me. No?
So you have to kill,
I'd have to
kill Astro first.
Yeah. One sec. I'm curious about that.
Yep.
Yes. This is a dev server I have running. That's right. I needed this for testing something. So it's just some Vite or serve or something. The fact that it can run at the same time and not need a different port is very strange.
Yeah, so the UI looks a bit like Vercel Dev or something like that. So where it's just like where it emulates like Vercel functions locally or something like that. So it's like
that makes sense. Yep.
Yeah.
I think I'm using serve, which is close enough.
Or that, yeah. So.
Okay, so should be good there. Yeah, so that is serve doing that, I think.
So serve is like it's just like npm package serve, right?
Yeah, it's just for hosting some files statically.
Oh, that's cool. That's probably it.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah. So now you should be able to go to /app, because like we done with like everything that is required for the thing to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you see that like you don't see the Fogbender widget because like you haven't set it up. You can't like sign in with GitHub here because you didn't set it up. But again, like for some people, maybe like they won't even like use that feature. So it felt wrong to make people set all of this.
Sure. Still encourages them though, and that's nice. All right, so name of this organization.
Yeah, we're gonna automate that part a bit.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, like we're in there. It's up and running.
Yeah, when you create prompts, now those prompts are like for your, you can set it up for your organization. You can like invite people to your organization, all that stuff. So it's like, it's features that some companies will just like hopefully like launch successfully, right? And they're like, okay, how do we make invites? It's like, no, it will take like, I don't know, like 3 quarters just to plan it before we can implement it. But here you get it right away, or like you get like Fogbender support right away. And now that you have this baseline, you kind of like you know how like everything works, and you're like, oh, but if I need like other auth service, I need to get like these features because they were like working here already. If I need like other support, I need to be something as good as Fogbender, and we think that we are the only one.
By the way, what happens if you click on support? This is localhost, or this is
This is localhost. Yeah.
I think it shows like an empty page because
up at the top. What?
Yeah, it's
I don't think we hide. We don't. Oh, okay, got it. Yeah. Oh, it actually makes sense. Yeah. So if you did set up Fogbender, you could see what it looks like.
Let's do that.
Yeah, and ours is hopefully like not very complicated to set up.
And let's go back to this part. Okay, so we would open the embedding instructions and copy our widget ID. Am I good?
I think you want to create a just
it will ask you for workspace basically.
Okay, cool. So yeah, we're in the workspace now, and this is where I would just need to grab the embedding instructions.
So if you close this and or load this, but basically that link should like send you to like the default one if you.
So this one would take you there too.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah. If you have something set up already. Yeah, but it will send you to this page. So those are the keys. And again, like part of the reason why we were like creating all of this stuff is like, how do you show people like how to use our widget, right? And it's like that secret key is like the way that we encrypt users, so that like only this user can get to like their history and all that stuff. And again, if like someone steals your secret right now, they will be just able to write to this workspace, and you can just like reset the secret later. And
sure, yeah, that makes sense.
Not worry about it too much. But like this integration requires you to have like a secret. So secret has to be in a database, right? Or not database, but like on the backend. So it has to be. So like everyone who tries to integrate Fogbender, they need to have front end, back end. They need to have like a secret management. They need to like know how to use JWT and all of that stuff. So it's like for that, again, we need like all kinds of examples and to demo how it should work and all that stuff. So it's not like an easy thing to have all of those examples and like, hey, this doesn't work in like Vue. Yeah.
Yeah, looks like I should be good.
Yep.
All right, cool.
Yeah, so if like if you send a message here, by the way, no one's ever sent a message so far. No one's ever asked any questions in prompts with friends. But just here's what it would look like if you just say hello. And this is you being a user, right? And then if you go to the admin, to the fogbender.com/the admin site, then you get to be like the vendor. And so
Yeah,
yeah. And so if you
see it like under
boom. Yep. So it's in triage.
here you
In
can
Mr.
talk to
Sir, we
yourself.
see hello.
Yeah. And so the whole point of this setup is that if you had multiple users on the customer side and in prompts with friends, like if you had sent invites, to your friends, then you could all chat like with the vendor team in the same widget. So you don't have to create multiple disparate conversations.
Yeah.
It does not integrate with Zendesk because it basically directly competes with Zendesk. We don't know what that integration would look like. Right. If you're using Zendesk, really you're supporting, like Zendesk is great if you've got a bunch of short-lived, like a lot of short-lived problems that need to be resolved by many different agents. They need to be on schedule and so on. And it's great if you need all kinds of analytics on that. Fogbender currently works probably best if you've got a handful of teams, like customer teams, really using your software in depth, and potentially as design partners or early customers. And you just need to be like creating tickets in Jira or in GitHub or in GitLab or whatever to track those demands and then get back to people. We're hopefully will add like more advanced features like agent scheduling and like analytics and SLA management, which is everything that Zendesk has. But at the end of the day, like the way I look at Zendesk is,
it's customer oriented and like you need to
user oriented, consumer oriented. And if you're team oriented, you're just like, well, I mean, as I mentioned, the best thing you can do today, unless you know about Fogbender, is you use Slack Connect. And that starts to disintegrate as you add people onto the vendor team. Because like if the only person, even if you have 500 channels, right? So Connect channels, you can actually keep all those 500 in your mind. Like you could I have 500 customers and like, some of them are active. You're going to know all of them. But the moment you've got two people, you can't tell who has read what. Basically, you're saying, two people must read every single, must mark every single activity as read and confirm that that's been handled by some other person on the team. So that's when it starts to disintegrate. And it kind of like, that's where I think we're hoping that folks will start eventually.
So Voorhees, they do implement with ticketing systems, right? Such as Jira, such as, I forget the other ones you mentioned, Trello, etc., right? So that's where like your ticketing would happen theoretically, but you would be managing the thread and who's responded and the status of the communication aspect of it here, right? The end result is generating a software ticket that, maybe gets...
we can start with like here, like in UI, you have like resolved, unresolved. As an agent, you can figure out like if this interaction kind of like finished in a sense.
It's that purple button.
At the resolve, top. Unresolved. Okay.
Yeah,
once you hit resolve, all the other people in your Fogbender agent team, they're not going to see this anymore. You're basically going to mark it red for everybody. Because you don't need to see. You as an agent just resolve this thing.
Okay. Yeah. And then where would I see like the dashboard of, is there, like the agent aspect, where do I see like oh, how many do we have hanging? How many, are we seeing like how many we're resolving per day? Things like that. Like this is meant to be like quick, but how do you tell like if someone's leaving something hanging somehow?
So that's where I think we're missing some analytics.
Okay.
If you click on your name at the top right, you can do expanded roster.
Okay.
And this is more of a tree view, and so these are sections. And so basically, if you're a manager and you just need to know what's going on, you can you'll see additional sections created as more and more activity shows up. There will be like assigned, unassigned, closed, open. This is where I think some of the SLA level stuff will come in, like SLA about to be broken in 30 minutes. Like that's kind of a live section that keeps changing. But our problem, like we've raised $1.5 million for this product, for this company.
Nice.
And it's just not enough to compete with like a full-blown, support systems quickly. Like it is enough to compete slowly, but not quickly. So we're just kind of like adding these features over time. Again, like where we've put a lot of work into is ticket management. So for example, it's hard to see from here, but let's say there was a discussion in the triage room. This thing enables you to do is to say, look, I'm going to select like 10 messages, and I'm going to say this is the context of an issue that I'm going to file. And once you file that issue, then it basically creates another room that with a name. AI will come up with a name based on the context, or you can change it if you want. And then you can say, in this room now is going to be where we're going to communicate with this customer team about a particular problem. And then you can internally say, okay, and this room, by the way, needs to be linked to Jira, to this ticket, because my developers, or whoever, we need some meta tracking on top of like, when is it going to be fixed? Like, what are some of the issues? And it's a two-directional sync. Anyway, this is not meant to be like a ad for Fogbender, but it's some of these topics are actually quite interesting. And I haven't seen a lot of activity in the space, like again, like with respect to serving technical users who happen to work together. Like, how do you make sure that you don't lose them all because they're trying to talk to you one at a time?
Yeah, this is cool.
Yeah,
I haven't seen the product yet, so this is awesome.
It's always like funny when we like talk to some like vendor and we're like, oh, if only they used Fogbender, so like I don't have to like say something to Andrei so that he says something to someone, and they are like waiting for like fourth person to kind of to actually
Propel
look
Off
into
is a perfect example. So like the way we talk to Propel Off is like there's some email, and then I have because we went through the same YC match with Andrew, like I basically have a direct message with him, but there is no way for me and Yaroslav to like complain about or even explain what's going on in Propel Off to their team in any kind of any sensible way. There's no way, right? So and like this is a problem because I don't know some of the technical details that Yaroslav knows, and so it turns into this like parade of broken telephone conversations where he'll tell me something, I'll like misinterpret it, show it to Andrew, who's the CEO of Propel Off. He has plenty of work to do, right? Like, and it's these problems, they do really exist, and I don't know, we're trying to.
Yeah, and the way that I talk about it, like it's good when you're like open source company and you can create like a Discord and create like support channels, and like everyone can see that. Like everyone from customers, if they have the same problem, can see it. Everyone from like your team can see it, because like they're like whoever's working on this feature, they can see all the questions about this feature and so on. So, but if you work with like a paying team who is complaining about like your like JWT not working, they are not going to go to public forum to talk about like their secrets and their setup and all that stuff. And they will send you like an email. And the gap is really substantial.
But again, Slack Connect is a good day one solution, right? So day one is you already have a customer, and then you're like, how are we going to talk to this customer? Slack Connect is perfect. day zero, this is where we're like, this toolkit, right, is for day zero. Folks just messing around.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if you already have an answer to like, how are you going to support if this takes off, that's kind of potentially an answer. Yeah. What was I saying? But yeah, like we're basically trying to make it as seamless as possible just to serve this totally non-obvious problem of just connecting people. Basically, like developers are lazy, right? And like we are lazy as developers. Like we don't want to do stupid stuff just because like we don't like information being hidden from us for no good reason. And like as lazy developers, we built this thing over the past like 3.5 years to help us be like lazy at ease. You know, you don't want to be like, you want to be like lazy and peaceful. And so that's basically the
yeah, makes sense to me.
Yeah,
I just remembered one more like aspect of it, of like adopting Fogbender. And it's like we would talk to a company and they're like, so what are you doing? We're selling some like API. I don't remember. So it's like, say like file upload. And like, who are your customers? Oh, we don't have like teams. So everyone just signs up as upload at like they will just create like a shared account.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And there's just no way to even like to talk to like a person on the other end. You just like hope that you are sending an email and someone will read it.
This happens a lot with API first companies where they'll, you know, your primary product is an API and really like you don't really care. Essentially, the customer owns an API key. You don't really care who the identities of the users on the customer's team are, but you actually do care. Like as a company that wants to sell a license or wants to maintain a relationship or discover what's wrong with their product, just so to like advance the service, like you really want to know the identities of the users. And the problem I think is that it's so difficult. And again, like why does Propel Auth exist? Because they recognize that as a problem, which is almost impossible to undo down the road. Like I've talked to companies that have raised, you know, tens of millions of dollars, and they cannot, and they're like, oh yeah, next sprint we're going to implement team management, and like 2 years go by, and like no, they didn't implement team management. Why? Really hard. Really hard. You got to raise like additional $20 million just to do that. I'm kind of joking, but it's just not a trivial thing. And yeah, like like Fogbender depends on team management to be in place. And so like if it's not in place, like we're useless. Like we're as good as, you know, not existing, because the only point here is to know the identity of these users so they can talk to each other.
That makes sense. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so someone just someone from chat,
I'll try to respond.
Uras, I didn't know how to say that name, but yeah, he's chatting through Fogbender now. He's
really
getting cool. Because when you're like on the Fogbender website and you go to support, you are using Fogbender like a client instance to talk to us.
Awesome.
And yeah, that's
yeah, that's really good. That's just dog fooding it. Like, yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Right. Use Fogbender for Fogbender.
Yeah, it's actually started like 10 years ago when we were doing hip chat alternative, because Slack didn't exist yet.
Right.
And one of the features was that when customers create like a team or workspace, they would have a room that was like a support room, and every customer, so like the whole team on the customer side saw the same room, and we saw every customer as like this customer support. So like we basically kind of like created Fogbender for that project first. Yeah.
Okay. Huh.
So the story goes that like someone just like said, hey, like you should create a product from that. I don't remember like the full story. Is that what happened?
So, okay, this full story. So we launched a product called LitChat in January of 2013, which was a direct competitive, like our title of the website was the best team chat for developers, right? And the reason we discovered that as a problem, which Slack has proven to be a problem, right? is because Yaroslav at the time lived in St. Petersburg in Russia, and HipChat just didn't work in St. Petersburg. There's no sanctions, there's no problem. It just didn't work. I mean, sometimes it worked, like maybe once a week it did work. But I remember like using Gtalk or Gchat to talk to you personal, right? Like just Gmail accounts to talk about work with Yaroslav. And I'm like, and we were working at some company that was doing like social vouching. And I'm like, why are we solving social vouching when we literally can't talk to each other? We're paying a communication company, right? HipChat to like be able to have these conversations at work.
Right.
And we can't because it doesn't open in St. Peter. Why are we doing like social vouching? We need to solve this team messaging problem. And so we launched and in our first customer, it was like a small startup, like a 7-person startup. Something happened. They created a room for themselves, like a group room. And they, that room somehow was shared with us. It was a bug. It was just like we rolled out some version and we saw what they were typing. And first it was like a 2-step process. We were like, oh my God, this is so bad. What have we done? Right? Because this is like the worst
security-wise,
security bug. And then we had this wonderful conversation with our our customer as a team to team, right? Like this is, I don't know, 7 years before Slack Connect shows up. And we're like, this is so amazing. Let's turn that into a feature. And so from then on, we basically made these help rooms that were created for every customer. But it was only for us. Like our customers couldn't do it, right? Again, like it was not a support product. It was just a team messaging product. But it was an incredible way to get to know the product ran for almost 3 years. And out of that early batch of folks who signed up, quite a few of them stayed on with us until we shut it down. And so it's so interesting because those teams, some of them completely churned out. So they changed their composition over those 2.5 years, but we still knew them really, really well because we saw that handover happen slowly. So it was a very cool thing. And so one of our advisors, once he saw the way we were supporting these customers, he was like, this is what you should just do that. Like that's a product.
Okay.
And so that's really, that planted a seed in my mind for this. And then like fast forward, I don't know, 7 or 8 years, we tried to do it.
Yeah, that's great. I like that. I love just like the organically driven like ideas, like they come from an actual problem that you're solving, you know, like it's great.
For sure.
Yeah, cool. Were there any special things you want to shout out about, like stuff in the frequently asked questions or anything like that on the B2B SaaSkit site?
Oh.
And what's up, Dev? How you doing?
Yeah, like I think one of our ethical problems we're dealing with the SaaSkit is that we built this to promote our own like for-profit product.
That's fine.
Right?
I don't think that's unethical, really.
I don't think it is, and we did a lot of work, right, for very little, like sort of.
Exactly.
But it is sort of I mean, I think some communities might think that it's too commercial or something like this. So we're trying to like this FAQ page tries to go above and beyond to explain these things. But I think what's important is like this question of like who is this for? We really hope that eventually some folks who are like really technical but don't want to bother with, they don't need to be implementing user auth, right? Or customer support or like database. And by the way, some people are going to be like, oh, I want to build a company, right? And it needs a database. So first I'm going to build a database. There will always be people like this.
Yep.
And so we're trying to say like, if you're not like this, like if you like don't care, you just need it to work, right? I think in my perfect world, would the backend be Elixir? Yes.
Yeah.
Like, do I like node-based backends? Not really, right? But still, this is a quick way to get started. It's a quick way to get started. And unless you have some overwhelming complexity with your backend business logic, and it's got TRPC, so it has a pretty robust server client communication layer, which is it's probably as good as it kind of gets from the sort of let's get going quickly perspective. Again, we need this going in a day. So that's our audience. Like the ideal audience is like folks who are like, I've had this thought. I've worked at DocuSign for 5 years, and I just left, and I've got some money, and I want to really try this very specific business problem that only I know about, and I think this could be $1 billion acquisition 5 years from now. How do I get started? Well, maybe that's the answer.
Yeah, and your first step usually to hire like 2 completely different teams, one for backend, one for frontend, and spend like a half a year just like for them to wait to figure out who is like talking to who, and like you're not getting any progress done for like I don't know, like a year, right?
Right.
And like the problem like in my mind is like they will probably not do team authentication and stuff. That's too hard for like them to figure out, right? So
that's why so many startups probably don't from the start, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
And
yeah, that makes sense.
I figured out that like the funny thing to mention from our FAQ is that like in the bottom we have 2 sections. So one section is why do you have so many services, and the other is like why don't you have enough services?
Oh, I think I saw those. Yeah.
Because it's really kind of like a tough balance. So we don't want to have everything kind of like locked in, because like one of the iterations of this project was like, okay, so like Vercel now has a database. Vercel now has like their own kind of like environment management stuff and all that stuff. Like we could just like build everything on top of Vercel, ask Vercel for like whatever, like open source sponsorship or whatever they're doing, and like we could go that direction. But the balance that we kind of like have right now is that everything is free, everything is like either open source or kind of like it has like a generous enough free tier. And like if we're talking about backend, like now like backend for front end is like a thing. You will probably keep all of your like SSR or like authentication like on the Vercel anyway, but you will add like a real backend eventually. So so we don't want to kind of like lock into any of those things kind of like completely. Again, like we could have built everything on like Supabase or something like that. So, but we need a lot of services.
I like the idea of not putting too much into one service like Supabase, because then it does mean that you can like piecemeal different parts easier, right? Like, you can go with Propel. If you're, if Clerk worked with everything, like then Clerk maybe, or whatever, right?
They will eventually, do, but it's just a thing of like, this kit would have made less sense if we like built everything on top of like Vercel. Like Vercel have to be doing that, or they have to be paying us or something like that, right? So and this, unfortunately, the way that it looks like, this kit can't have like every service ever like possible. So like we could add like I don't know, like a service to toggle dark and a light theme on, but it's like it's diluting kind of like the value proposition. It makes kind of like harder to set up and all that stuff. So it's a funny balance of like too many services. It's too many services for some. It's not enough services for some. So like we dodged a bit with like email service, for example, because Propel sends their own emails and like Stripe sends their own emails. We don't have an email service, but you will probably need that. But like we don't know which service is like the best one.
Yeah, error tracking, I think we saw mentioned.
Yeah, error tracking is the big one that is, and again, it's pretty competitive. Like, what is the best error tracking?
Well, yeah, it depends on your budget, right? Because they're it could be pretty expensive. Yeah.
Do you have more money than you know what to do with, then use Datadog.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We've used this, so for front end, we've used this service called Track.js for many years. And one interesting thing about Track.js is they've never raised any outside funding. So they like pretty explicitly say, and their pricing is unbelievable. Like it's really in comparison. It's inexpensive. It's also never changed as far like we started using them 10 years ago and it was like $49. I think it's still $49, which is like,
Nice.
you know, $49 10 years ago was a lot more. You could buy a lot more milk, you know, for $49. So, and it's a pretty cool service. That's kind of no frills, you know, more or less. It's not like the most beautiful UI, but it's affordable. I kind of like their vibe, you know, and they're not, you know, they're not trying. Yeah. Also, like they're not gonna probably sell to anyone ever, and they're not gonna disappear. They're not gonna shut down because they're self-sustaining.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I like Sentry as well as far as like a service, but like it gets to the point of like you. Are they expensive? I haven't looked.
Yeah, well, they're all expensive because Sentry, you know, the problem is, you know, it's VC money, right? Like there's going to be hidden costs. There's going to be, what they want to do is, you know, talk to our sales team and then they'll sell you, they'll want like $50,000 from you basically.
Right.
Sooner or later, you know, that's the problem. You know, when it's like same with Segment, it looks so, you know, so tame initially, so easy. And then again, like, when we were at our previous company that acquired our startup, you know, it went from like so tame, so easy to $100,000 a year, like pretty quickly, you know.
Gotcha. They're just hoping to get you locked in, and then like that cost is just kind of worth it because doing anything else is going to cost you engineering time, right?
Yeah, more or less. Like you're like, okay, do I hire a developer to undo this for $100,000, or do I pay these, you know, folks? And that's basically the ROI there, but you got to be careful.
It's a good point. And kind of like going back to your comment about like how many services to support, you really need to figure out like what your users need like most. So like even Sentry and a lot of these tools that have like SDKs, they'll only maintain a handful of them in-house, and then they'll just link out to third parties that do them for other languages, right? Like how often do you find like an actual Elixir SDK from like the company? Right?
More common these days, but yeah, certainly not Erlang. That was all really rare. But I can tell you, you know, PostHog is a nice way to, again, our hope is that folks just trying stuff out, maybe thinking of starting a company and they want to validate an idea. PostHog is a really cool way to actually make sure your stuff works, to kind of understand how many people are visiting your page, like what they're doing, how long they're staying. It's probably not the best thing in the world, but it's totally sufficient for that specific requirement of like deciding, is this something I want to keep working on or not? Like, am I getting enough interest in this particular product?
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of like I think, you know, once you start talking about error tracking and all these other things, you already know something. You know, you already know that something is either working or you've already decided to go serious with it, like to launch it for real. At which point you know.
And speaking of error tracking, we kind of have it covered a bit. So like in Vercel, if something crashes, you will get to that in like a logs tab. If on front end something crashes, you will probably get it in PostHog. So it's like if it was like a bigger problem, we would have to be addressing it kind of like earlier. But yeah, at the moment, the way that everything is kind of like set up, you're probably seeing the cold starts of Vercel, which is like, again, like for Elixir people, like looking at like cold starts is like not fun.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But it's a like a good it's a good starting point, and like one of the reasons like why we're like selecting Astro instead of like Next.js or even Remix is like it's much more flexible starting point. So that's why we have like those kind of like examples of like that setup page. It almost has no JavaScript. You can turn off JavaScript, like everything will work, just like not as nice animations.
Right. Okay.
We have this app page, which is what I jokingly call Remix, which is like Remix inspired, but it's like it doesn't have like all the features of Remix, obviously, but it's based on Astro and React Router and gRPC. So you can get basically like all the same functionality, just with a bit like more, with a bit more configuring, I guess, or like setting it up. But we also have like this /survey page, which is a completely kind of like a Vite create React app style thing. We were supposed to like show a link for it somewhere. So it's not app survey, but just survey.
There we go.
Yeah, so this is like, if you turn off JavaScript, this is a blank page. So in a sense, this is like what we have on Fogbender/app. So like for agents, we only show create React app. Like agents are going to see that spinner for a second, and they will keep this tab open for like a month. So it's like, it's a perfectly fine thing where like you don't need SSR. It's kind of like we're talking to Elixir backend. We don't want to add any kind of like
dashboard applications don't need server-side rendering.
And
I agree with that.
You can start with this if you know like this, or you have like a team that is like more comfortable with this. You can start with this like remix inspired kind of like thing, and use that. Or if you just like hate everything JavaScript, we have like /demo/htmx, which is like the it's a small demo. Like I need to play with it a bit more.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't messed with any HTMX. Oh.
So it should be demo/htmx. I like its font is too small, so like I didn't see anything.
Oh, did I kill?
Okay, did you crash your Astor?
I think
maybe?
I killed that. It's dead. We
gotta
saw
go
that
to an
404
event
again.
in San Francisco. Is it okay for me to check out?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, we have to go pretty soon as well.
That's fine. I think we covered pretty much everything. Any closing statements or anything you guys would like to say?
Well, Yaroslav, if you want to stick around a little bit longer, or
I have like, I don't know, like a 5 or 10 minutes, so we can just
we can just do it now. It's fine. I think we've done pretty much
so much for having
all I
us.
needed. Yeah, it's great.
It's our first. I think it's our first stream together for sure.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah, it's been cool. And then we got some really good questions from your audience.
Mm-hmm.
And and actually, I think almost everything that everything worked more or less. Like not everything super quickly, which is cool.
Yeah. It was nice. It was a good experience. And I have not used Doppler. I hadn't signed up for Fogbender yet. So yeah, stoked.
Yeah. And we're around if anyone wants to do a follow up or whatever.
Cool.
And if anyone is interested in helping us develop, the open source toolkit, don't be shy. Lots of little.
Yeah. So in
things.
terms of like help that we can get from this is you can go like start our repo. That could be cool. You can just like use this thing and report any bugs if you find it. And if you have any kind of like ideas how to improve it, we would be glad to talk about it. And if you just like, I don't know, want to like post somewhere about your findings, or maybe you like fork it and create like a small project or something, right? That's all the stuff that we want to kind of like see.
Yeah, it looks like you got a good chunk of stars today. Like it was at 167, then I clicked it and it jumped to 173.
Yeah, it was at 172 and then just went.
Oh, really?
I
thought I saw 160 or something on my screen.
Yeah, it was 160, and then just because I've been tracking, because we got quite a few during this.
Okay, cool. Yeah, awesome. So thanks, streamers. Thanks, viewers. Appreciate you.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's these stars are like I think pretty legit, like pretty organic. We haven't really had any major publicity events. Like we've posted on Show HN, but it didn't really go very far.
Right.
I think we got 45 upvotes or something.
Okay. I think a product hunt, would be a pretty cool launch.
We're gonna we're waiting on further. Like this was great, but like to get to a wider audience, I think we're gonna really want to get the stuff with Propel fixed.
Yeah, there you go. That makes more sense.
It pains me to know that some percentage of folks are gonna like show up to prompts with friends and.
Yeah, that could be a bummer. Yeah, I can see that totally.
So we're trying to avoid that. Yeah. All right, I got to run. Thank you so much.
Cheers,
Chris.
Yep.
See you later.
Yep. Have a good one, Andrei. Later.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thanks.
And later, Yaroslav. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Nailed
thank you, Chris, for the stream, and yeah, that was a great opportunity to talk about it, to see you use it, and I think you like found some like bug because I think it's like crashing doing some like database.
Yeah, when I
code.
tried to click prompts, it died.
Yeah, if you send me that screenshot, I will like try to to look into that.
Sure.
Because I didn't see like what exactly is like broken, but it seems like yeah, just like Postgres maybe like didn't create an index or something. It doesn't seem like obvious what went wrong here.
Yeah, it looks like a Postgres error.
Yeah.
Sure. So yeah, I will send that to you.
Yeah, so all of this stuff is really great to like to see people use it to see all the kind of like things that are like not obvious that could be improved and all of that stuff. And I'm sure we're not going to like compete with like Create T3 app, which is like kind of like a no-brainer because it's like it doesn't have anything extra and it's like the most popular framework, right? The next, but we still want to see this thing kind of like be used.
Yeah, I think it's useful, and I don't think T3 is even trying to solve the same problem, right?
Sure, yeah, it's a difference between like I'm starting a project and I'm starting a business.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah,
that could be like a way to put it.
That's a great way to put that. Yeah. Well, cool.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say to chat?
No, I'm just grateful for you and for our audience, and yeah, I have to run.
Yeah, perfect. No, thank you for joining. This was awesome. I think it went great. So yeah, thank you. I'll try and upload this to YouTube at some point.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, like, do you know if that's going to YouTube or like how does that part work? Are we going to have like some permanent link of this?
Somewhat? Something permanent with this?
Permanent, yeah, just.
I mean, I can send you the video if you want to like cut and splice things that way too. Up to you. But I was just thinking, yeah, uploading it to my YouTube.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, so.
Cool. Awesome.
That's perfect.
All right,
yeah,
sounds
thank
good.
you so much.
All right, yeah, thank you for joining, and I'll talk to you again soon. Probably see you on Twitter.
Yep. Bye.
All right, later. Hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. You know, I do want to point out I made a mistake in there. I forgot to run the database migration. So if you follow all the steps, you'll get a much better working experience. So that was my mistake. But yeah, that was a fun time. So I'm maybe hoping to do a few more of these interview style, you know, bits of content, and hopefully you all enjoyed it too. Maybe leave a like, a comment, or a subscribe, and I will see you again soon.